What is the lesson? Well, notice the title of the show, folks. The title of the show makes reference to King Charlie's speech. I laboured on that word at the beginning of the show. I repeated it multiple times. I said speech, speech, speech. And the title of the episode, the title of this live show is, Should You Care? Should you care about everything that we've read out here from the article, everything that you're aware of? Maybe you've listened to the speech in its entirety. And the question is, King Charlie's speech, should you care? Should I care about his speech? Folks, the big lesson here is anyone can say anything. How often have we, folks, seen politicians during an election campaign get up and give a speech? What do politicians do when they give a speech? They tell you what you want to hear. In other words, they sell you a narrative through the speech. They use words. It doesn't matter whether it's the English language, fucking Chinese, Indian, or Swahili. If there's a politician somewhere in this world, folks, or there's just someone in general, who's giving you a speech about anything, giving you a civics lesson, a historical civics lesson, as the article put it. Giving you, the download, moral lessons. Anybody who gives you a speech is using words. They're using words to convey a message. And as I've said, anyone can say anything. And politicians, we all know this. How often do politicians give speeches? And they say they're going to do X, Y, and Z. And then when it comes to crunch time, squeaky bum time, as we say here in Ireland, when it comes to squeaky bum time, and the politician has to back up their words with legitimate action, what more often than not, folks, what happens? Well, what happens is the words that were used in the speech, it is revealed that these words were empty. They were meaningless. They had no foundation upon which to stand. What am I getting at, folks? What I'm getting at is, whether it's King Charlie giving you a speech about the volatile world in which we live, about having to back NATO, about having to give your support to Ukraine and the courageous people out there, it doesn't matter what King Charlie says. It doesn't matter what anyone says, whether they are a politician, a salesman, some other schmuck in at your school giving a speech. Because if you've been at school, you will of course be familiar. People will come into school and give speeches. Folks, paper doesn't refuse ink. Talk is cheap. Talk and words. Words don't mean anything unless there is legitimate action there to back up the words. Otherwise, it's just empty garbage talk. So whenever I name this show, Should You Care About King Charlie's Speech? Well, let's take one of King Charlie's own words that he used. We finished on a particular word there in the article. Isolationism. King Charlie doesn't want to see isolationism in the world. That wouldn't be good. It wouldn't be good if there was an open marketplace with lots of diversity. Lots of different countries with different laws, different rules, different regulations, different cultures. No multiculturalism, no dilution of the culture. A different way of running their operation. That wouldn't do. No, it all has to fit into international law. And all of us, we all have to share common beliefs, whether we like it or not, about democracy, about law, about the legal system, about culture. And you see, here's the thing, folks. Words are what they are. The only way your words can acquire meaning is if you have legitimate action to back them up. So when I name the show, Should You Care About King Charlie's Speech, think about the word isolationism. King Charlie's using it with respect to countries and, the globe as a whole. He doesn't want the globe to become fragmented. No, that doesn't seem to fit the agenda of King Charlie. He wants everybody unified, sharing the same beliefs, the same democratic beliefs. Because in King Charlie's own subjective opinion, he thinks that democracy is just the best thing since sliced fucking bread. So he's sort of, well, there's only one way to live life, folks, and that's through democracy. In the form that we've been exposed to for as long as we've been conscious. We wouldn't want to change any of that. We wouldn't want any isolationism. We wouldn't want, little countries to break away and not be part of big, all-encompassing international law. We wouldn't want a diverse, open marketplace with options. We wouldn't want that. Everyone has to be under the same umbrella. So King Charlie doesn't want isolationism. He wants us to all unify. Kumbaya. Peace. World peace. Well, you see, let's use this concept of isolationism in a different way to how King Charlie's using it. If I will never, folks, never ever look at someone's words in isolation. I will never look at a speech in isolation. Why? Well, the reason why I don't look at words or speeches, in isolation is because anyone can say they are going to do anything. That's not hard to do. I can tell you, see you watching, I can tell you that I'm going to come around to your house tomorrow and give you £10 million. Does that mean I'm going to do it? No, but I can say I'm going to do it. It doesn't mean I will. The only way you can prove if my words have meaning, if my words have legitimacy, is if I actually carry out the mechanical action of going to your house and giving you the £10 million personally in cash, or you opening up your phone and seeing that I have engaged in the mechanical action of sending you £10 million. Only then will my words acquire validity. If you never received the £10 million, then my words were empty. Vacant words. So, I agree. In this context, I don't want isolationism. I never like to separate words from actions, folks. And that's the lesson here. Never separate words from actions. Because you can't do that. For the words to have meaning, you need to be able to see evidence of action. And so, should you care about King Charlie's speech? Fuck no! Of course not. They're just a bunch of words. He's in a chamber, speaking to the common person. Notice in the chamber, folks. Where's the common person? Is the common person in the chamber? Is Charlie speaking to the common person? Who's he speaking to? It's a bunch of US lawmakers. We touched on that earlier. He's talking to these other people. And he's just talking. That's it. So should you care about King Charlie's speech in an isolated way? So should you be like, digging into the speech? What did Charlie say? In isolation? Fuck no. Of course not. What you want to do is watch and observe and analyze King Charlie's actions. Because it's only when you analyze the actions can you put the words into context. Can you actually figure out if the words carry any weight or if they're just empty? It's action, folks. Actions. You see, in this life, folks, you should never view words in isolation. So, let me give you an example from personal experience. So I remember, many years ago, I had this dude who thought I was a very good singer. So we're talking about music here. He thought I was a very good singer. Now it turns out, retrospectively looking back, I was shite at singing a few years ago. I started my musical journey in 2022. And around this time, about a year into my musical journey, my voice is pretty shit. Not very good, not very skilled. But there was this guy who was like, oh, you've got a great voice. You've a great voice. I want you to work on a project with me. And so, I hear this and I'm thinking, okay, work on a project. And this guy starts giving it the big one. He starts telling me why I'm so great, why I would be so perfect for his project. I'm indispensable. The perfect choice. He's exactly what he was looking for. And my voice is just, it's a great, powerful voice. And I'm a great performer. I'm a great showman. A great frontman. This is what this dude was telling me. And so I'm listening to this. I'm listening to all of these words. He's giving me a speech, effectively. So he says that he wants to meet up. And I said, okay, where do you live? And it turns out he lives about 50 minutes away from where I live. So he lives 50 minutes away, I'm here. And I said, okay, well, we can meet up then. And he went, well, actually, sure, you come out to my studio. So he told me he had a studio. And I said, okay, well, so I'm thinking in my head, that's a 50-minute car journey out, a 50-minute car journey back. So that's basically, let's account for traffic. It's a 2-hour journey, basically. So I'm going to be on the road for 2 hours to head out to this dude's house where he has this little studio, apparently. So I go and meet him. I say, okay, I'll go meet him and see. What was I looking for, folks? Because, I'm hearing all these words. So I thought, okay, let's just go out and meet him. So I go meet him at his place. And when I get into his house, what he called a studio, he called it a studio. Wouldn't be exactly what I would have called a studio. It's not, the image I had in my head, but he defined it as a studio. It just kind of looked like a bedroom with a few wires and cables, a little microphone here and there, his guitar on a stand. I was looking at this going, okay, he really gave it the big one about his studio. So we talk and we go through some of the nuts and bolts of a potential project. And so I sort of leave his house somewhat underwhelmed. It's like, okay, what's this guy's agenda? How serious is he? So I go home and he starts sending me these voice notes. He's all like, we have to meet up again. We have to meet up again. And of course, as I then find out, and this is the hilarious thing, folks, I find out that he doesn't have a car, it turns out. Now, at the time, I did have a car. But I found out that he didn't have a car because he asked to meet up again and he said, yeah, you meet me out at my place. And I'm thinking, in my head, fuck me. That's another 2 hours out of my day to go meet this dude. So I said to him, no, well, I met you out at your place. How about you come into, you come into town, you come into where I'm living. And that means we'll alternate basically. I'll go out to your place one week and then you come to my place the next week and then we'll alternate. That seems reasonable. Instead of me always having to travel out 2 hours. And he went, I won't be able to make it in. It's very difficult for me. And he was kind of stalling. Now, I had knowledge because I talked to someone about this dude after our first meeting. I went and talked to another person who I sort of trust and said, what's the deal with this dude? And I found out he doesn't have a car. So I knew he didn't have a car. And as he was sort of stumbling, stammering, well, it would be difficult for me. And I ended up then just saying to him, so you don't have a car then? Well, yeah, I don't have a car at the moment. That's just sort of, that's my setup. And, it would be easier if you came out here. And I said, right, okay, well, can you not get a bus and we could meet halfway then? I'll meet you halfway somewhere. That would be difficult too, I've got all my stuff here in the studio and it would be just sort of easier if you came out to the studio. To cut a long story short, folks, this dude was not interested in a musical project with me at all. He was interested in the fact that I had a fucking car and he wanted me to drive him around to different gigs and to meet different people. Now, I sussed him out after the first meeting when we were trying to meet up a second time. Once he declined the offer to meet halfway, I just dropped the thing and said, you know what? Fine. We'll just let it sit. Maybe it'll organically, this project, if it's really meant to be, it'll organically come up. But you know what? You just keep working on what you're working on. I'll do what I'm doing. And then he started saying, no, but you're the man for me. You've got a great voice. You're the front man that I need. You're gonna be a great match for our project. He starts giving me a bunch of fucking words again. But folks, the answer is in the action. This dude, he wasn't even prepared to meet me halfway. I go out and meet him at his place the first time. He's not even willing to meet me halfway. So I drive, instead of 50 minutes, 25 minutes out, 25 minutes back. Instead of just meeting halfway, he couldn't even do that. That's telling me something, folks. Those actions are at odds with his words. He's telling me how great I am, telling me how wonderful I am, what a great vocalist I am, how perfect I would be for his project. Words, words, words. But you see, when it actually came to sending me a signal, the signal being, sure, of course I'll meet you halfway. Or better still, I'll come into your town and I'll meet you there. That would have been a signal to me if he had did that or if he had done that. That would have been evidence for me of action. Action that would have reflected that he was serious about the project. But you see, he was never serious about the project. He didn't want me for the project. He was being deceptive. He wanted to give me the illusion that he wanted me for this musical project when what he really wanted me for was my set of wheels at the time. That's it. He didn't have a car. And he thought, oh, the old Bandido here. If I can sort of just, lure him in with this idea that I've got a project, I'm doing him a favor, I'm going to let him use my studio. That I'll then perhaps, say, well, yeah, if you need a lift here and there, then, we're now a duo. So, what's mine is yours. He never wanted me for a musical project. That's the point. How was I able to suss that out? Actions. I'm hearing him talk a good game. I'm hearing him praise me and tell me how great I am. But then when it comes to something as simple as meeting halfway, just to talk about the project, he's unwilling to literally meet halfway. And that tells me something important. The act of not meeting halfway, his actions contradict his words. He's got a lot of enthusiasm in his words, but there ain't so much enthusiasm. All I was hearing were excuses for why he couldn't meet halfway. That's a red flag, folks. So look, it is no different here with King Charlie. King Charlie has given a speech. Whoop-de-fucking-do. I'm not interested in King Charlie's words in isolation. I want the whole package. I want to see the words being put in the context of action. Then I can fully analyze the words. Without the action, without evidence of action, I can't properly assess the words. So that's the thing here, folks. That's the lesson. You never separate someone's words from their action. The first thing that you should be looking out for, folks, is not their words, it's their actions. This is what a good salesperson does. You know, maybe I shouldn't even say a good salesperson. I should say an effective one. An effective salesman will use words to convince you of something, to buy something, to get involved in something, without you having observed his or her actions. You're sold on the words. And that's the mistake, folks. That's the lesson. We see it all the time. People will forever, for as long as we're all living, people are going to come to us with propositions, with projects. Just like this dude who said he had a musical project that he wanted me to get involved in. He didn't really want me involved in a musical project. He just saw that I had a car and that I was interested in music. I'm, basically only 12 months into my musical journey. He thought that I would be sort of needy to get involved with someone. And then he could exploit me by using my car. So people, for as long as you're living, folks, people are going to come to you with propositions, ideas about this, that, and the other. Salespeople do it all the time. They may just knock on your door, they may cold call you, and they'll sell you this narrative using the spoken language. And you should never, folks, you should never separate someone's words from their actions. If someone tells you something, gives it the big one, yes, you can't avoid hearing what it is they've said, but what you should be looking for is actions. You'd be looking for their actions to verify that they are, quote, a man of their word. You need to see evidence of action, because it's only when you see their actions can you put the words into context. In other words, are the words empty? Is the talk cheap? Or is there validity to what this dude is saying? And if there's validity, then there may be an opportunity for you or I. But it's always, folks, it's the actions. So King Charlie's speech in isolation means nothing to me. Nothing. Absolutely zero. And it's the same with anybody else who spins me a speech or talks a big game. I don't care about their words in isolation. Isolationism. Not for me. I need to see the actions. And that is what you should be looking out for. Another example, folks. We see this within families. And it's such a trap to fall into. You know that phrase, blood is thicker than water? Whoever invented that phrase, beautiful, isn't it? It's the perfect phrase. We talked about it before on the show. It's the perfect phrase that family members will use to deceive other family members. Because that phrase is basically saying, just listen to my words, I'm your flesh and blood, you don't need evidence of my actions. Because I'm your flesh and blood, because I'm genetically related to you, you just take me at my word, because blood is thicker than water. You don't need evidence from me. I'm your kin. So just believe me when I say something. That's what that phrase is getting at. That's why I detest that phrase. Blood is thicker than water. That is the most manipulative, deceptive phrase. And anybody who uses it, incidentally, I am highly skeptical of. If I ever hear someone say that to me, I'm immediately looking at that person and thinking, ha, so you subscribe to that notion, do you? That's interesting. And it's the same thing, folks. In that context, again, don't ever allow yourself to be seduced by someone's words or a speech, because that is all it is. Just like my example with the £10 million. We can all say anything, folks. Where you should be looking, if you're trying to decipher in this life, folks, if you're trying to work out if someone is a valid, or if someone has a valid proposition that might provide an opportunity for you, where you should be looking is their actions. You want evidence of action that backs up what it is they're saying. And if they can't give you evidence of action, well then for me, whatever it is they are saying basically stays in the realm of talk is cheap. Until someone gives me evidence of their action being able to legitimately back up those words, I will, as a default, put whatever it is they are saying into the category of talk is cheap. Empty words. And we've all come across people, folks, who are like this. They talk a big game, but they deliver in a very underwhelming fashion.